to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today I am super excited to be in conversation with my next guest, a passionate virtual reality enthusiast, the founder of Pioneer VR. And their mission is to make virtual reality, VR, more accessible to all. Please welcome Christopher Fonte. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I'm glad we were able to get connected. You know, those mutual contacts. I was like, can you reach out to some of your tri-state folks? And now here we are. And I'm going to learn some stuff today, I think. And the listeners are in for a treat, I'm sure.
Definitely.
And again, you know, thank you for making the time, because we all have these like super busy schedules. And, you know, I always try to ask people before we go right into it, you know, what's been the best part of the week and things of that nature, just to get a little bit, because I've had some folks who will come on and it was like, look, my dog died earlier. I was like, oh, wow. Did you still want to do this podcast? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, my week's been pretty good so far. I'm not in any bad mood or anything. So, you know, I'm all ready.
And that's great. And for to start out, could you give the listeners a bit about your background and some of your early like creative interests? Because I think, you know, ultimately what I do in this podcast is really a focus on arts and culture, but I think there's an extension that comes out of that. So, you know, give the listeners a bit about your background and some of your early creative or even technical interests.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So my whole life, I've kind of been really focused on music. When I was younger, instead of taking sports lessons, I took guitar lessons. And when I was little, I kind of wanted to do that as like a career, kind of make, you know, music. But I've always had a focus on making music kind of like for commercials. Like when I was little, I wanted to do music for commercials. And then when I went to college, I kind of studied how music works with other media, which actually got me working with some game developers because I worked on some of their games, their music. And then that was kind of like the segue into finding out about VR for the first time and trying it out. So that's kind of like where the path led from when I was younger. It's kind of like started with music and ended up at virtual reality.
Thank you. Wow. You're already answering some of the future questions. So thank you on that. You're an overachiever. I don't like it. I don't know if I like overachievers.
I'm not too much of an overachiever. Don't worry.
So what was it about like music starting off specifically? Because I read a little bit, I think what composing was the background, right?
Yeah, so I studied, as I said, like how music works with other media. So when I was in college, I took a lot of classes with the focus on music theory, composition, stuff like that. So I've been playing guitar my whole life, but I really like honed in on my like the kind of more nitty gritty when I was in college, and got a lot more projects under my belt, like working with other filmmakers, you know, people that make games, like I said. So that kind of like led to where I am now, like I said. So yeah. And so like sort of that career path, you had that inkling, and I'm seeing, you know, sort of one of the earlier dates I saw on the website was 2017. So it was like, that's less than 10 years ago. So what was it like? Were you directly like out of college, you wrapped up and you were like, I'm going to start a virtual reality like or a company or what have you? What was that sort of career path like? Was it, you know, Pioneer was more of the like secondary and then it became like this is the all encompassing, or was it something else? What was those stops like? And I have a second part to that question. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. So I went to college, like as I said, I was studying kind of like media related stuff, but there was this internship, and I was kind of like at a point where I was a little bit down in my life. I had just lost like a bunch of money. And I got this email that was like internship opportunity. I said, I got to go for this. It ended up being a internship called Young Entrepreneurs Across America. And it was basically an internship where they teach students how to run their own business. And it's a house painting business. So you call yourself student painters. I don't know if any of your listeners ever saw like the signs, but it's kind of like a nationwide thing. So I was like, I got to try this, you know, like I feel like there's something that's like pulling me towards this. And I ended up just running a college painting business for a summer, hired a bunch of people, and kind of got like to see what it's like to run a business for the first time. And there was some ups and downs, but by the end of it, I actually was like the manager of the year for the New England division. So I was like what's next. So I did help that company with some mentorship stuff with other people that wanted to run their businesses after that. But the real next step was Pioneer VR. So when I was done with Student Painters, had a successful business there, I said, what should I do next? And I looked at virtual reality. I said, this is like an up and coming thing. I had just gone to PAX East, which was like a kind of like a gaming convention, and I tried VR for the first time there. And I was like, this is something I've never seen before. This is going to go places. And from then on, I just was trying to figure out ways to kind of like make a business out of virtual reality.
I like it. And I think it's something really, really important about that. Like when you were talking about the painting business, it made me think of, this is when I realized I wasn't a sales guy. I'll say that much. When I had this, it was a capstone course in senior year. And it's like, you got to get this or you don't, graduate on time, essentially, And we're at Ripken Stadium here, like in Aberdeen. So in Maryland's minor league baseball stadium. And we're doing like a trade show and we're selling furniture. And it's like, yeah, just go out there, approach people. I was like, It's like not a skill that I have. And for context, I'm really tall. I'm like 6'4". So you just have like huge, I had hair at the time. I don't have what I have now. I have hair. So you have like just a large ogre type person, right? Like, yo, look, you want to buy a couch? I got some good couches.
A little imposing. Yeah. I mean, it's not for everyone, but I think it has to do with a lot of like what you're selling. And if you actually are passionate about it, like I've had other jobs post Student Painters where I had to sell like electricity, changing people's electricity provider and, random things like that, insurance, things that I just really wasn't passionate about. So I didn't, find too much success with that. My grandfather was a painter, so I had already painted with him in the past. So I was like, I kind of had a story there already, and I was a little bit more invested in that, and I could kind of see it as it was. And with virtual reality, it's even easier because it's something I truly am passionate about. So the selling aspect of it, it's kind of like this, just like a free flowing conversation. And I feel like I could just, convey what I need to say, even if it's like a salesy type conversation.
Yeah. So I always think that, and this is the part B of it, I suppose. I always think that, when we go into something that we're passionate about, we have the passion, we have the energy, but I think it's always important to have somebody that's sort of that guiding thing. When people ask me, how'd you get into podcasting? I got into podcasting 14 years ago. Wasn't a lot of podcasters out there. So I might be borrowing or stealing or being influenced, if you will, by some of the early podcasts or some people who are radio guys that are doing interviews in the morning and such. So for you, and this, you're going to like this pun, I think, is there a pioneering entrepreneur that you follow their career or influence how you go about your business and especially in starting off with Pioneer back in 2017?
Yeah, so there is this one guy. His name is Bob Cooney. He's kind of like a location-based entertainment kind of guru, I guess you could say. He's goes all around the world and does classes and helps people that are opening up VR arcades and even other types of arcades as well. He's really into that space. So I've been following him. I met him once in person at this convention called VR LA. It was like a virtual reality convention in Los Angeles that I went to, and I also have attended his webinars and even messaged him on Facebook with questions. So he's kind of been someone I always look at his emails. He's a really good source of information. He goes to all these kind of trade shows. And so he knows all the current new things coming out, what to look out for. And he gives his recommendations, which I always trust because he has a lot of experience. So he's definitely a pioneer in this space, and I definitely look up to him.
It's great. It's great to have that there. And in doing this, I was doing mostly, pop culture, oriented podcasts, and maybe some pop culture questions in the rapid fire portion of this interview, which be on the lookout. But I would have to, in trying to make the transition and doing more of these sort of interviews. And, I don't have an art degree, right? I don't have a degree. I have a degree in business, but there are certain things that I just have knowledge gaps. So how do you fill those gaps? It's like having that sort of trusted source as you were kind of describing. And mine might be audiobooks. It might be being on someone's mailing list. And it's like, oh, yeah, I send this stuff over. And we get enough stuff in our email. And we have limited space, like for attention real estate, if you will. So, that stuff got to be good, when it comes over. And it's like, I need to use this or I'm unsubscribing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, college only gets you so far. If you want to be an artist and you're passionate about it, college, could help you with some of the more intricate, aspects of it. But if you really want to develop your own style, you got to learn on your own in whatever way makes sense for you. So it sounds like you kind of figured that out as well with these, kind of interviews. You're definitely probably learning a lot in these, I bet, maybe even more so than you would in a classroom.
Yeah. And, and just going back and even stealing from your entrepreneur types, all right, how can I scale my business up here? And then suddenly, in 3 months, we'll partner, we'll release some type of, we'll release a memo on LinkedIn that says we're partnering in this virtual podcast experience. Sit down with me from using the friggin' gear or what have you.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of, because, that enthusiasm, right? Give us a little bit of the history around VR and ultimately what motivated you to you said it was scalable. You said it was something that's going to grow soon, but what was it that really said, you know what, I'm the person, and they built this team out? What was some of those that introductory, this is happening? And what's something about, sort of the history of VR that you were like, no, this is the move?
Mm-hmm. So VR has been around for a pretty long time. You could look up, even on my Facebook page, I sometimes put some of the history of VR in little Facebook posts. And back in the day, before I was even born, in the 70s and stuff, they had these huge things that would be attached to the ceiling, basically, and they would have very, really rudimentary virtual reality applications. So it was definitely, just experimental at the time. But I was saying earlier, when I went to PAX to try VR for the first time, I went and there was this room with a bunch of people just demoing games. One dude in the corner had an Oculus Rift, which ended up being the headset that I used. And for when I first started my business, and just trying that out, I was like, okay, it's here now. When I was little, I had this virtual reality weird game. It was kind of you have these gloves and this helmet, and it was kind of I don't know if you know what a Game & Watch is. It's kind of one of those McDonald's toys you get that's a game, but it's really just images.
Yeah. And
they light up, and it was that, but VR. It was really weird. So these ninjas would come at you and you would have to punch. And I was like, this is something. And then going from that, the next couple of years later, there's this virtual reality experience where I'm moving around, shooting robots and stuff, and it's feels real. I was like, this is seemed like an exponential growth curve, and this thing's gonna get even better and better. So at that moment, I was kind of clicked in me, and I was like, this could be something I could bring to people. So that led to me getting an Oculus Rift, like I said, and then I tried it out, and I'm like, my computer is about to explode. It does not have the capabilities to run all this stuff. So I had to learn a bit more about computers at that point, upgrade my PC, get a better graphics card. And, after a while I finally got it working, but I'm most people probably aren't going to go through this whole step process like I did. So I'm how could I, show them that this stuff is really give them that first really good experience, so that when they do have an opportunity to try it again or even get it for themselves, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know I've tried it. It's not scary or anything, and I know what it is. And so that's kind of where I feel my part in this whole virtual reality landscape is. It's always been kind of showing people who it's their first time, a lot of old people, a lot of really young people, and giving them the first really good VR experience.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And I hear the passion there. I hear it. I like it.
Thank you.
So when I hear about sort of the inaccessibility of it, in your experience, is it just that it's sort of this tech chasm? I'm not familiar with this. I don't know anything about computers. I don't know anything about the different tools to actually have that experience. Is it that it's inaccessible in that way? Is it usually cost? And I ask that because there's always in the background, hey, do some coaching for podcasts. People don't know how to use the gear. And there's a lot of different things out there that you're like, this is not going to be a good experience. You're not going to want to do this because you maybe don't know anything about computers. You know you want to enjoy this, but you don't know anything about this sort of software or the choice of mics and so on. And there is a business in that. That's absolutely fine. But it's just like, I find that it's just knowledge based more so in terms of podcasting. What would you say like the main thing around, or the main things or main considerations around like VR that makes it kind of inaccessible for folks?
I'm going to say VR has actually gotten a lot more accessible for people. Yeah. When I first started this in 2017, Oculus wasn't bought by Facebook yet. And to play VR, you needed a PC. You needed like these like sensors everywhere. So it was a lot more intricate. So when I first started, that's like where I was like, setting it up with the PC. Then the Oculus Quest came out. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a standalone headset. Most headsets nowadays are standalone, which means they don't need all the sensors everywhere. So that already took that out of the equation. That makes it easier for people. But even further, so you don't need a PC anymore. It's all in the headset. Granted, the experiences aren't as good as you would get on a PC, but it made it so people could just go to the store if they have it in stock, buy a VR headset, and you're in. So that did make VR a lot more accessible to people, but I've still found that a lot of people still, have never really tried it, but it's on their radar now. So my theory is that, as we go on, people are going to keep adopting it more and more. So like kind of like my first phase of my business, like when I started was, bringing it to people, showing it for them for the first time, and like giving them that first good experience because it was really hard to get at that point. Now people are like, adopting it more and more. So the next step that I'm up to right now, as of this year, is we're making our own content. So now I have another developer that works with me, and we have 4 original games for Pioneer VR. One's a driving game, one's a flying game, one's a shooting game, and one is like a walk the plank off of a spaceship game. So we have those 4 games. We're the only ones that could offer them, and they're also customizable. So we put people's like logos and stuff in it. But the thing that I have that people can't get at their house now, it's not the sensors or the computer. It's like I have this whole wheel set up with pedals and everything. Like you can get that, but most people aren't gonna have a VR headset, have the PC, have the racing wheel. So that's something that we bring now. We also have like a gear that you could, or a joystick to fly the flying game. And for the walking the plank game, there's a big piece of wood. Pieces of wood aren't that hard to get either, but that's just another thing that we are able to bring, so people get like a really cool, unique experience that they can't get at home. So I think that these peripherals, like the wheel and everything, those are kind of what are setting us apart. I'm just always trying to find ways that we can bring something to like that you can't get at your home, to something that goes kind of a little bit beyond.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to put a pin in, because I'm going to ask you the sort of wrap up questions in the back end of like, what does the future look like? So, just keep down the back burner. So give me some examples. Like you're touching on it there. So definitely some more examples. I hear the developer side. Is it, who's like, I guess, the client, who's the customer, or what have you, and sort of what is that experience in, not necessarily selling as in hard sell, but selling as in, hey, I'm here as an evangelist for VR, if you will. That's the title you need to add. Do that thing on LinkedIn. You're an evangelist for VR, but if you're going there, you're doing a demo. How are you getting like the clients to like kind of adopt and be like, more interested in even taking that plunge to utilize some of the games that are developed and just be more aware of VR?
Well, back in the day before we had the custom games, I did a lot of kind of events like birthday parties and stuff. So it wasn't as hard of a sell in that aspect. It would kind of be like, oh, my kid likes video games. We have a couple of kids coming over. Can you bring VR? And I'd say, sure, we could bring, whatever games you guys want. And we would go from there. And then, over the years, I actually ended up working at this place called VR World in New York City. The clientele there was very different. They were older. They wanted to party. They were like, it was like a club atmosphere. So it became less about the VR and more about like the event as a whole. So that kind of like, after working there for few years, it kind of got me like thinking of the other aspects that go around, like, you know, the VR, and then there's everything else that you can do for the event itself. And then that led to making these custom games, because now we can make, if it's like a game or a party for like the end of summer or something, or like a graduation, we could make the game themed for graduation so that it kind of fits in to the whole event. It's not just like a VR party, you know, it's like like a photo booth edition or a DJ. It's something else that you could add that fits in, but it's just virtual reality. So at the same time, we're able to still achieve the mission of showing people VR. Again, it's still going to be a lot of people's first times, but we could do it in a more like seamless way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we were talking a little bit about your day before we got like started in earnest in the podcast. So I definitely want to ask it, but in a different way. What's the first 30 minutes of your day look like on like a work day? And when does the laptop, when do you unplug? Do you ever unplug? Are you plugged in right now outside of this podcast, obviously? So what's the first 30 minutes look like? And when do you unplug for the day?
Honestly, the first 30 minutes of my day aren't too pretty. I'm usually more active at night. It's when I do most of my work, but I do have a day job just like you. So the first 30 minutes of my day are just kind of driving to my job. My day job is I'm a videographer for my local government. So I just kind of take videos for the local town supervisor and edit videos and stuff. But when I get home, you know, I have my rig over here, my PC.
Nice.
So I go over there, and that's where I do all my work. I guess if I was going to be like on a really intense Pioneer VR work day, I'd open up Unreal Engine. That's the game engine that we use. If we have an event coming up, I go into my two games that I made were the flying and the driving game. So I'll go into those maps, change all the billboards to put people's logos and pictures, and, you know, make the game all customized for their event. And then export it. And sometimes I'll like, you know, add more things to the game, you know, we just keep improving it as much as we can. And then after that, I guess like marketing and stuff that I do all the marketing as well. My day's actually gotten a lot easier thanks to AI. So whenever I have to post something or make an email even, usually we'll just go to ChatGPT and ask it for help. I don't use it entirely, but, you know, it's a good way to like, you know, get something started, get a good basis, and then you just like kind of work around it. And just like that hybrid of like my mind and the AI mind, I think makes my workday go like a lot faster and more smooth. So that's something I've been doing a lot during my workday.
I hear you on that. And that's why I started laughing. So I'm like, yeah, I've done that a few times where it's like, all right, what am I going to put in here? What pictures? Like, yeah, keep making it better. Come on, Chatty, make it better. And this is unrelated, but it's definitely has sort of a tri-state and definitely a New York connection. I was looking at like stats earlier for Joe Namath for some reason. And I like typed it in and I was like, yeah, so what was Joe Namath's touchdown interception ratio? And I look at it, I was like, he was trash. And I was like, he's a Hall of Famer, and I'm doing all of this. So of course I was like, what is Joe Flacco's numbers? And it was like, these are his numbers, and he retired in 2021. I was like, that's not right. That's false. That's, you know, erroneous. He played for the Jets last year. And it gives me the thing. I'm sorry, we only go back so far. So there's a limitation there. And it goes back to, you know, September of 2021. So it's just like learning and sort of utilizing that. And I find you touched on the marketing component and even the email component. I find that, you know, sort of AI in that capacity is a really good copywriter at times. It's just, what are the inputs?
Yeah. It's like, it's a good linguist, but if you're going to like rely on it for factual information like that, then it might not be the best idea. That's why you need to kind of use, like I said, like your mind and the AI both at the same time. That's where you get like the best results, I think.
Use the AI as an assistant, not the
exactly. Yeah, but you can't rely entirely on it.
Yeah, there are some people, because, you know, and I think that's something that ties into adopting. We don't want people to be Luddites, right? But adopting new technology or new ways of thinking and utilizing technology. You hear all of this news, and I've been on it early, like about just sort of ChatGPT. I remember that article came out from the Atlantic, I think back in December or January, and people were like giggling about it. And, I work in higher ed, and now we're finding out people are writing like acceptance letters using ChatGPT for things that never happened. And I'm like, how do we catch up? I was like, you've known about this for months. You should. But people kind of like giggle through all of the things you can do for it. And it's like, there has to be a certain limitation there. And, with sort of that emergence of more and more, technology, more and more AI kind of being around and being part of conversations regularly, how do you see that with regard to, your work with Pioneer VR?
Well, virtual reality is kind of like in the same realm, I'd say, of that, like, futuristic almost technology, just like AI is. So I feel like it's kind of only natural that I try and find ways to use it, and in doing so, learn more about it, so that when someone asks me about it, like at an event or something, because people always talk to me while I'm doing virtual reality events, and I'm sure AI is going to come into play. In these conversations. So just knowing a lot more about it and learning about it will help with that. So I could kind of, I like to do a lot of like small educational little tidbits when I'm talking to people. I always try and, include that in the events, because I think education is always a really, good aspect of any kind of business. So if people want to talk about AI, I would like to be well versed in it so that I could provide a good input in regards to that topic.
That's good. So this is the last real question, and I realize it's more of a combined question. So I'm going to put it this way. So here it goes. So, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, you're what, 6 years in, as far as Pioneer goes?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
6 or 7 years in at this point. So still under a decade, but going strong, pushing through. So where do you see, like, in the next, let's say 5 or more to 7 years, that the sort of virtual reality as an industry looks like, and, how, Pioneer fits within that? How do you see like your business growing, and how do you see like sort of the industry growing over the next like 5 to 7 years?
Sure. Well, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a metaverse. I think more and more metaverses are going to keep growing. They already are. Somewhat even like under our noses. It seems that the news and mainstream news outlets really only cared about Facebook when they created their metaverse, which was arguably the worst metaverse that was made. There's like a lot of other ones that are a lot better. One of the best ones that I know about, or started actually using recently, is called Neos VR. And it's this like metaverse where you could do like collaboration work with coworkers in VR. So you could be like a cartoon character in VR and open up Adobe Premiere in a window here. Everyone could see it. You could like edit there, and then open up Blender in this window and like import the model right into the game and like play with it. It's crazy. It's like, I'm like, this is like a truly interesting metaverse that's like actually, there's a vibrant community. People are like gambling in there. I saw like at a virtual casino and things like that. And these things are going to keep, growing, getting bigger. More and more people are going to be using them, whether, the news tells you or not. So I think that's going to be a big part of the future of VR, is this kind of like metaverse stuff, which is also going to lead into more people getting headsets. They're going to get headsets so that they could be a part of all these like metaverse virtual things. Especially young people, I think their feeds, like their social feeds, show them a lot of like funny videos and VR chat and stuff. So that's going to, down the line, they're going to be more familiar with that kind of metaverse and be more inclined to get a VR headset than like an older person. So, as the generations go, more and more people are going to get VR. They're going to be more well-versed with it, which means Pioneer VR is going to have to diversify. And like I said, my focus to diversify has always been peripherals and add-ons, like that wheel. I have a lot of ideas of different kind of things that we could do with physical props. And I've had this one game brewing in my head. I don't really, tell too many people about it, but it involves like it's like a piñata almost. So think of a piñata, but virtual reality. That's as far as I'll go with that. But I'm trying to make that into a thing.
Yeah.
And now that I have this other developer with me, we're just trying to get some of these first events going, get our feet off the ground, and then hopefully we could start developing more and more unique experiences that are specifically things that you can't get at home. And that's how we're going to diversify.
I love to hear that, and continue success. That's really cool. And I see it. Like you touched on it. You gave very sparse details about this new one that's brewing up here, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can see how that could work. So yeah, shout out to you.
Yeah, thank you, man. And I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you ever try virtual reality?
I have not.
Have you ever what's your if you have to think about virtual reality right now, like what comes to your mind?
I think of sci-fi movies actually. I think of like Lawnmower Man or something, or even, but I've definitely seen because I think my partner's son might have one of the headsets. So it's like, I've been around it. It's just like not really on my radar or what have you, not opposed to it, actually interested in it, but just haven't really gone into it. Yeah.
Because I think like one kind of cool thing that you'd probably be interested in is like virtual meetings. Yeah. It's kind of tough because most people don't have VR headsets. They're not willing to try and do a virtual meeting. But if you meet someone that's a VR enthusiast like me, I'm all down to do that. So me and the other developer that I meet with for Pioneer VR, his name is Brian. We actually meet in VR all the time. We meet in this game Neos. We just find a random world that's empty. Yeah. We actually went to like a Legend of Zelda island the other day. It was like empty, and we just talk business there. We like shake each other's hand and stuff, sit down, and just it's kind of like having a face-to-face conversation, almost like this. And I think there's a lot of companies trying to figure out ways to do just that, but in an even more like official way. Like they'll have your actual face in the game and things like that. So just keep an eye out, because I think maybe in the future you could have a future VR podcast in VR. Maybe.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. I'm like, I think for me, from the sort of ideation and acceptance sort of standpoint, once I see it in my head, it resonated. It was very vibrant in my head. I was like, I can see that happening now. I can we're going to another world. I'm not talking to anybody here anymore.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on it. Yeah. And if you get a chance to try it, you should definitely, try it out. I don't know. Sometimes people try virtual reality for the first time and they're put in like something like a roller coaster or something that there's a lot of movement and it makes them get sick. Yeah. One thing I've learned from having so many people play VR is that games with a lot of movement, if it's your first game, you're going to get sick, because it messes with the locomotion in your inner ear kind of thing. And it makes your body think like, okay, I'm seeing things move, but I'm not moving. I must be poisoned. And then it tries to you get nauseous. But the more you play VR, the less that happens. Like that doesn't happen to me anymore. It doesn't happen to a lot of people anymore. And that only usually happens if you're playing for a really long time. But that's just something to keep in mind. If you're going to try for the first time, try and do something that's very, relaxing, something where you're sitting down, maybe like a little underwater thing. I have my go-tos for like when it's someone's first time playing VR. One of them is like this game is called Hand Tracking Simulator. Just put the headset on, you're in. You don't have to put controllers in. You could see your hands, and you're in. There's a little like solar system. You could like touch the sun and hold it, and touch the earth, and then like it's just like it's that simple. But you're in VR, you're interacting with stuff, and I didn't need to like explain. Oh, this button does this button does this, and you got to move here. So it really depends. That first VR experience is important, I think. So keep that in mind.
I definitely. And so it brings me up with a very simple question before we get into the rapid fire questions. I got like 5 of them for you. So for that, you were touching on how simple it is, and like you have me on the hook right now. So how simple is it to get into sort of that introductory experience? Would, a listener or someone just, or your host right here, just have to like go there, buy a headset? Is it a specific game? Is there other gear that you need from an introductory standpoint to kind of get started in that experience?
Yeah, I'd say you just got to get an Oculus Quest, Oculus Quest 1 or 2. They're both pretty good headsets. Those don't require PCs. So they don't need to worry about having like a crazy rig or anything. So you just get that headset, and then you just look up like what the top games are. Usually those games are going to be really good. They usually have like Super Hot up there, which is like a classic, one of my favorite VR games. They'll probably have like VR Chat and Rec Room, which are two pretty good introductory metaverse type of games. And if you want, you could look up like relaxing, or like they probably have like a tab for like relaxing games. Those will definitely be good kind of like introductory games, because they'll probably not require a lot of movement. It'll be a lot more visual, which is good to start with, because when you have visuals coming at you and then you also have to do controls for the first time, it could be a lot. So, you know, something relaxing, I'd say, would be a good first game. So, you know, get an Oculus, download some relaxing thing and sit back and enjoy it. And then when you're done with that, you try out a game for the first time, something simple like Super Hot that only requires like one button. And then after that, it's just you're off to the races, because then the whole world opens up and you'll find a whole bunch of more experiences that some of them are not too good, but some of them are going to blow you away.
That's great. I'm already seeing, I don't know if it's quite the same thing, but I'm already seeing that Striking Vipers episode of Black Mirror.
Oh yeah, that went a little too far, that episode. I don't know if I mean, that'd be pretty cool if we could get to that point, but I don't know why they'd make a fighting game that has like their whole genitals all in there too. Like, I felt like that was kind of like a weird game design from a game designer standpoint, a weird addition, but I mean, hey, it was a good episode though.
Thank you. That's great, and it's like a bit of a primer for these next rapid fire questions. And but thank you for giving us, you know, all of that insight and your enthusiasm around VR and around, you know, Pioneer. It's great to hear that, and thank you again. Continue success. Yeah,
it's my pleasure, Rob.
Yeah. So I have 5 rapid fire questions for you. They're kind of all over the place, but you'll get it. You'll get a flow of it. And as I tell everyone, don't overthink them. Whatever that first answer is, don't say, no, it needs to be something else. And like, I find it all the time when I talk to artist types, I'm like, what's your favorite color? And they're like, here's my 3 favorites. I said favorite, not favorites, not no S. So here's the first one. What was your favorite game growing up?
I've always liked Legend of Zelda, just like the puzzle aspects. And it was just one of the first games I played. So and it's also continuing to this very day. So it was something that I kind of grew up alongside with me. So that's gotta be my all-time favorite, probably.
Nice. You touched on it earlier that you're living the dual lifestyle, right? Like I am. You know, you have the day job and you have the creative work and you have the passion project and the passion work. If there was no other, let's say, obligations or responsibilities, what would be your favorite time to work?
Like time of the day?
Yeah. Or time of the year. Some people go seasonal. It's like, man, I love being shut in.
Yeah. I mean, my ideal time to work is like really late at night. Like, I'm definitely a night owl. I can't even fathom going to the gym like in the morning, like at 6 a.m. People that do that are like, you won't ever see me there. So my ideal time would be like 11 o'clock to 4 a.m. probably. Those vampire hours.
I mean, you're wearing black, you have dark hair, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I won't say anything else on that subject, but yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Room's kind of dark. Which TV show or movie or music video, or even cartoons, I suppose, what of those like medias has depicted VR best? And I kind of answered earlier that, from a movie, from Lawnmower Man or something. But for you, what would be that type of media that's depicted virtual reality best, in your opinion?
So I guess, do you know Sword Art Online?
Yes.
It's like an anime. Definitely unrealistic, because I don't know why there'd be a headset that like puts you into this like state of unconsciousness or whatever. But that game is definitely doable, and people in VR chat actually made the like entirety of Sword Art Online in VR chat for free. So I think that like kind of showed like a good kind of view, not like a good view, I guess, but it was like somewhat attainable thing. Like, you could definitely have a game like Sword Art Online. It wouldn't be like, as realistic. Like, you wouldn't like feel like you're physically there. It'd be, a VR game, unless we get to that, Striking Vipers level. Then we might be able to go into Sword Art Online and get stuck in there. But that was definitely I really like anime, and that was like a VR anime. So I'd say season 1 specifically.
Yeah,
is definitely my vote.
It's funny. There's a screen that I have loaded up that actually has some anime on it right now because I was watching something before this podcast
Nice.
started. I'm looking at that second mediocre adaptation of Junji Ito.
Oh yeah, no, there's Junji Ito is one of my favorites, but yeah, the animes haven't been too able to really capture. There's a few that are pretty good, but a lot of the Junji Ito animes are kind of
I like
not too
collection
good.
for the most part. This most recent one is just like, all right, guys. It
Yeah,
has
the one on Netflix.
it has that Netflix
Yeah,
thing on it. It's a certain Netflix thing.
yeah, I saw that one too. They chose like some of the like lesser interesting stories to make videos or to make a show about, which is interesting. But they're making one for Uzumaki, I think, soon,
Nice.
and it's gonna be on Adult Swim. Uzumaki is like one of his most famous works, and they're making it like really stylized and putting their work into it. So I'd keep a lookout for that if you're into Junji Ito.
I definitely am. I scared my partner. We're talking about that one, I guess, episode. It's on the Netflix series where it's like you're peeling the girl's face off. She's like, come on, man. She's like, can you? I was like, it's about finding your inner child. She's like, you're full of it.
Yeah, no, there's always a little lesson. I guess you could pick around and find a lesson out of those, but mostly I just watch them because they're just very morbid, and I like horror movies and stuff. So.
Well, that next question is good. These are the last two. What is your favorite horror or sci-fi movie? It was written already. It was already there.
Wow. I think my favorite horror / sci-fi movie would be Event Horizon. That movie was pretty awesome.
Nice.
It's I like how like 90s it is, it's like I like that kind of like era. It doesn't take itself like too seriously. And it's just like a fun yet scary action-packed movie. I think like most people can find enjoyment out of that. There's other movies that like Skinamarink. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Saw that recently.
Recent horror movie. I really like it, but you're not gonna get a good reaction out of the room if you play that movie. But Event Horizon, like it's just a fun movie. I think so. It's probably my favorite.
Yeah, Skinamarink was polarizing. I saw Event Horizon recently because I was going back through it because I think last year was 25th anniversary. So yeah, it's 97. So yeah, every now and again it's just like I want to go back to a certain era, and it's like spaceship hell. Yeah, I want to watch. Event Horizon. It'd be great. You can just see Sam Neill's eyes.
You should play Doom if you like spaceships in hell.
Well, so this is the last one I got for you. And since you talked about, you're living that vampire life, as it were. And I don't know if this the way that I generally frame this will work. I usually ask people, what is your favorite, like late night? I need something. It's got to be good. It doesn't have to be a healthy meal. What is that for you? It might be early morning for you, but what is that I need something that doesn't need to be healthy, but it needs to be good. What is that go-to meal for you?
If it's late night, there's a place called 24 Hour Bagel here in Long Island that I go to. And I've been going there since I was in high school. I went there like actually right after prom at like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m, I think. And I still go there to this day, and it's called the American Wedge Panini. It's just like a panini with chicken cutlet, bacon, Thousand Island sauce, tomatoes, lettuce, and it just in the middle of the night, it just satisfies, and then it's so big the next day you have some food too for breakfast. So it's my go-to.
Well, thank you. And you're now officially off of the hot seat. So thank you for that. And in these final moments, one, I want to again, thank you for coming on, spending some time with me. I think we got it. And two, I want to invite and encourage you to share with the listeners where they can check you out, Pioneer VR, all of that good stuff, social media, website. I was on your website earlier. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you type in Pioneer Virtual Reality on Google, you'll find most of the stuff. If you're on Facebook, just type in Pioneer VR. Instagram, just type in Pioneer VR. The website is just www.pioneervirtualreality.com. And the email address is pioneervirtualreality@gmail.com. So as long as you can remember Pioneer Virtual Reality, then you should be able to find us really easily. And I'm always down to talk, even if people just want to if they have an idea they want to talk about. I call it VR fanboying. Sometimes at my events, like people come up to me and they're like, oh my God, you could use VR for this. And then like I could have it here. And then you could have this whole room. And I'm like, Yeah, and then I'd like tell them my side of it, and what would work and what probably won't work in that idea. And yeah, I mean, VR it just makes people excited sometimes when they see the potential. So if people want to talk, I'm always available. You could email me. My phone number is on the website. You can message us directly on the website, wherever you need me.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Christopher Fonte for coming onto the podcast from Pioneer VR. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and some virtual reality in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.